Good day. I'm Bill Bates, the CEO of ECBD Consulting, and I'm here today to provide you a shortcut course in the essentials of developing a work breakdown structure. As we get into the material is copyrighted and can't be reproduced without our permission. All the material in the course is PMBOK compliant and is also based on our core methodology, project management methodology. ECBD Consulting is a PMI registered education provider. As we get into this course today, I want to cover several areas. One is defining project requirements and project scope, because that's really essential if you're going to develop a work breakdown structure. We're going to get into guidelines on building a WBS. We'll look at considerations and hierarchy of the WBS, looking at why WBS development is a repeatable process. We're going to talk some about the purpose of the WBS dictionary and WBS numbering, and that would end the course. As we get into talking about developing work breakdown structures, a work breakdown structure has two component parts in it. One is the actual work breakdown structure itself, usually shown as a hierarchy, and the other is the work breakdown structure dictionary. In getting in and looking at this, what we need to do is remember that the work breakdown structure itself is a breakdown of the product and how we develop the product. It identifies all the work that's required in order to successfully complete a project. It normally is shown as a hierarchical block diagram like an organization chart. It is not necessarily sequential, so the boxes can at any level can be laid out in any order and be correct. However, having said that, we will normally just naturally lay out things as you look at the picture, left to right in a rough sequential order. Nothing wrong with that either, but it's not required. The preferred approach to do this is to display it as a block diagram. As I said, the usual way to show a work breakdown structure is as a block diagram hierarchical structure. And what you're looking at here on what you watched on the slide that was presented was building a house project. So we purchase a lot, we design the house, we build a house, and we have some project management, and that's all level one. And each of those first level boxes, if they're large enough, can be broken out again. For instance, design, we have to find an architect or hire one. We have to design the house, and we have any follow-up design that needs to go there. So there are a number of things that we'll look at when we talk about pulling this apart, but it is a block diagram hierarchy, if you will, going as many levels deep as you need to define what we're going to call work packages, and I'll define that a little better shortly. What I would like to do now is give you some basic guidelines of building a work breakdown structure, and then we'll get into a process of building a work breakdown structure. What you're going to do in the work breakdown structure is identify your major products to be built high in the WBS, usually on the first or second level. What you want to be concerned with now is not to be overly bothered by sequence. Just identify your major parts as you go. And the larger the project and the program, the less the sequence thing is of concern. What we're going to do is take and identify each of the major products and then break them into subtrees of subproduct components. So what we're going to be doing as we do that is follow the product development. The lowest level of the subtrees, the WBS subtrees, will be called work packages. You were just looking at a slide with a hierarchy, WBS hierarchy, but not a particular project, just showing names of major pieces of an undertaking. And in this case, we also have used the term program. What a program is a really large project, the Space Shuttle program, which has been going on for a long time until it just ended. Now, a program can have subprograms. Subprograms will have projects if you have a program, but if you're in a small to medium-sized project, forget programs or undertaking, forget programs. The project can be broken into major pieces, and we'll call those sub-projects for the time being. Those could be phases or not. As we start to take a subtree and pulling it down, you'll notice summaries were there, and then finally we reach work packages. Now, as we go through and look at this, there are a number of things we have to think about. When you looked at that diagram, every level and every box in the level represents product, cost, and time, right down to the work packages. So basically, this is called top-down planning. We pull the thing apart, and then later, in another pass in planning, we'll take all those work packages, we'll estimate them, we'll get time and cost for them, and roll them back up through the structure until finally at the top, we have the total product to be delivered, we have the total cost, and the total time that it'll take to do it. Or we have the segments of that at any level in the structure. Now, the trick here is to pull this apart and get it down until we find the work packages without it getting too deep. The work packages and how you determine them is to a large extent a judgment call based on the experience of the planners. We have some guidelines to help you make that determination, and the first guideline is that every work package needs a responsible leader. The best way to do that is to be able to identify common skill types that are in the work package. For instance, they're all carpenters, they're all COBOL programmers, they're all telecom analysts, they're all HR analysts, or whatever. If you do that, you can usually find the house they sit in the organization, and you can identify the management chain above them, the people who will be doing the work, and usually then find a responsible work package leader. What that does is provide you accountability all through the structure, if you will. Not finally, but every work package needs to identify products, a product or several products that may be produced in order to call the work package finished. Another criteria we have is how long is the work package on the calendar, the scheduled duration for the work package. If it's a small to medium-sized project, it's going to usually run anywhere from a couple of weeks to about a month, depending on the size of the project. Very large projects may go up to 2 months. Now, we haven't at this point defined large, medium, and small, and that's up to an organization to do, but to me, a large project is something probably in excess of $1 million. A medium-sized project would probably be $500,000 to $1 million. A small project would be under $500,000. You may have a totally different set of criteria. That's fine. But those work packages shouldn't get too long, or what you're going to get is being 90% to death at the work package level, and you'll never hold your schedule. If you get a really big project, to me a really big, huge project would probably be in the $50 to $100+ million. Then you may take your work packages up to 2 months simply to reduce the number. There are a number of advantages to using a block diagram as to display the work breakdown structure. First of all, it shows very clearly as a hierarchy. And that way the major products can be broken down into their constituent pieces by the team's technical resources as they go. It's much easier to identify specific work packages as opposed to if they are lumped into a list. What you never really want to do in this exercise is get on a whiteboard and just start listing things randomly, because you'll have the devil's own time reorganizing it later. What you want to do is get on the whiteboard and start pulling it apart in a block diagram. And of course, the real way to do this is do it as a team. The project manager shouldn't try to do this by themselves. They should have some key people from the various parts of the organization that are going to be involved to help them do it. If you're running very similar types of projects repeatedly in the organization, you can literally build a template for doing this And of course, if you build a template, then all you have to do each time is check to see what's different. You need to make that check though. Finally, one of the big advantages of the block diagram is it improves communications and illustrating the project scope and presentations to the team, to executives, to other stakeholders, but a picture is worth 10,000 words. Now, we found that it's really good to have a process to do this, and we've come up with what we call a repeatable process to develop a work breakdown structure. And basically what we do is we pull a project apart level by level, and we don't proceed past that level until we've done everything that's in the process. And at each level, the first step is to create that level, to create the work breakdown structure diagram for that level, be it 2 boxes or 20 boxes at the same level, or whatever number. Once we've done the breakout of the boxes and they have their name in them, then we're ready to go and deal with the second part of work breakdown structuring, which is to write the work breakdown structure dictionary statements for each box in a diagram. The issue here is when you create the boxes at the level, you'll give them a name. It may be a design work package, so you say do design or create design or whatever the words you want to put in there. But now in the dictionary, you need to elaborate on what does create design mean in this particular case. It's a short paragraph that describes what you want done, the requirements, if you will. Now, the other thing to deal with too, when you put the name in the diagram box, you need to start it with a verb to show an action. Do, create, whatever. Once you've done that, and you've done the entire level, you've created the level, and you've done the dictionary statements for the level, then you take one of the boxes of that level and create the next level for it, and repeat the process. And you do that all across the level until you get it all done, as far as you can. Following the process that we've been talking about, the two-step process, you've just looked at the first level of a work breakdown structure diagram called the Best Home Energy Project, where you had requirements definition, you had determine alternative energy solutions, analyze best solution, best city, and so on and so forth across. And you'll notice they were numbering because we're starting to put in a work breakdown structure numbering process. And we'll talk more about the numbering process in a little while. But that's very necessary also to help us deal with this, especially with software. Once we get that first level of the work breakdown structure, the next thing we would do is go deal with the dictionary and write the dictionary. Now, you have just looked at a slide that showed the template for a dictionary where we had started to work on the first level of that project, the Best Home Energy Project. And you'll notice in the slide you just looked at that the project itself was described, and that description probably best comes right out of the project's charter. And when you finish with all that, there's a product which is the best solution by city for the province. And is that a milestone? Yes, you bet that's a milestone. Then you'll notice there are a series of summary blocks, complete requirements definition. That's work breakdown structure number 1. It describes its products, and yes, that's also a milestone. Usually at the first level of work breakdown structure, almost everything happening is a milestone. And then we have number 2, which was the determination of alternative energy solutions. It's described at that level, and the products are provided, and again, the milestone. We do this right down through the 6 boxes that were on the work breakdown. Once you've finished the dictionary for the first level, then you go back to the work breakdown structures with those first level boxes, and then you take each box in succession. Is one way to do it. And for instance, we first dealt with requirements definition, and we broke it down into its work packages. In this case, there were only 2 of them. And you notice when you looked at the diagram The two work packages also had an asterisk in the box. That's our signal visually that it's a work package. We made the determination that's a work package, we do it. You'll also notice it's numbered in a hierarchical numbering system, a decimal system, if you will. Now, once the number 1 was done, then you do number 2, then number 3, and number 4, and number 5, and so on and so forth. Now, if you're in a larger project, you could literally take and have different teams that were related to those boxes take and break them out if you wanted to. But they still need to follow the breakdown of the subtrees following the two-step process. So now we have requirements definition broken down into its two work packages. Let's go look at its dictionary. On the last slide up, we saw the WBS dictionary for level 2 after having looked at the structure. And you'll notice the dictionary image you looked at was incomplete because we wanted to focus on the requirements definition. And so now we see the two work packages from the requirements definition, and we see they're described in kind of a one-paragraph statement. Gets more detailed, starts to give you more specific information about each work package. And again, you have the products and whether each work package is a milestone. In this case, we're not calling the work packages and products themselves as a milestone, but the summary level complete requirements definition, which has both reports pulled together, is a milestone. Now, why do we do this WBS dictionary thing in the first place? Because admittedly, it is a bit of work to do it. But what it does is it describes each level and item in the WBS diagram to the extent that if something happened, you have a fairly complete record of the work to be done to make the project successful. And we pick up descriptions of the work, we can pick up the quantity of the work proposed, we can pick up the inputs and outputs of work packages, we can refer to technical documents if we want to, we can identify the responsible functional technical organization that's going to do it, we can identify cost account information and link it to it, we can identify milestones and link it to it. All that can happen within a dictionary if you want to put it there. But when you've finished, between the diagram and the dictionary, you have a very complete record of what it is you intend to do in the project. The last item on the work breakdown structure we looked at was project management at the first level item. And when you go to break out project management, you need to think about the amount of work that has to be done by the project management team to make sure the project is successful. And here's an example on your slide you just looked at of what that might look like. So obviously you've got planning that has to be done. That's work. It's not delivering the product itself, but it's work that the project has to pay for. There's going to be some administration happening in the project. Who's going to keep the records? Who's going to keep track of things? So we may have project coordinators, we may have project administrators, but we need to be able to pay for that. Product integrity is all about making sure the product is right when we finish. This is the documentation, this is change control, this is managing issues, is doing everything that's necessary to do that. And as a project manager, one of the key people on my project management team in larger projects is a product integrity manager who deals with the technical issues of the project and plus the documentation, change, and whatever. You may have a communication side of the project, and if that's the case, you could put that inside the project management. If it was a really big undertaking, you might even have it as a separate administration major subtree. Risk management has to be dealt with. And finally, you could include closeout of the project under project management. So we have the project management subtree. The last major item I want to deal with in dealing with the work breakdown structure, you'll notice every time we put up a diagram of a project example, we numbered the boxes. And so what we need is some kind of a sequential numbering system that goes down and through the subtrees showing the various parts. There are a number of ways to do that, as I'll describe in a minute, but the preference way to do it in most software systems today is a digital process, 1.1.1.2 or whatever, as you go down through the subtree. Now, as a convention, the project box is not usually numbered, except that it may have a unique project code which links it to the financial system. If we're in a program, there are a number of ways to handle this. The convention we use is we number the program subtrees, or first level under the program, the subprograms, we number them A, B, C, D, E, whatever. So we use an alpha system, and we keep it alpha until we hit the projects. Then within the projects, we use a decimal system as we come down through the levels, because it's most common. Now, a lot of your current software systems will allow you to pick different variations of how you number. All you need to do is be consistent to your corporate standards. We were just talking about the decimal system as a numbering code for a project, and what you've just looked at is a diagram that shows a decimal system for something called the Green Subdivision Project. And you'll notice it had a unique project code in it to attach it to the accounting system. It says use the project number in a given fiscal year. And as we go through the various levels, a couple of the first levels have been broken out into subtrees. And you'll notice each of them goes down 3 and 4 levels. It is not required that all boxes at a level, like under the bungalow foundation frame house, the bungalow foundation was broken out, the frame house was not. It's not necessary that every box at every level be broken out as equal to all of the others. So in both of these cases, you had one finished at level 2, another finished at level 3, another finished at level 4. So this makes no real difference. It just, you go down the subtree until you find the work packages, and then you stop. Now, besides the WBS number, if you're using an automated system to keep track of all of this, you may want to be able to sort that WBS in different directions for different reasons. Depending on the software system, you may be able to apply a number of different types of codes to every box in the structure. For instance, we've already looked at the WBS number, which in the case where we have preference, it's a digital number. Let's say I'm a company working for a client, and the client has a different WBS numbering system. I don't want to disrupt my system internally and apply theirs in lieu of mine. So what I'm going to do is add theirs. So I may have a client WBS number, and let's say in the case example you're going to look at, that had the alphas in it, so DF, if you will. We may want to put a cost code in to link it to the actual work package or the summary to the accounting system. If the project is following a particular technical process, a technical methodology, it may already have an example project broken out and have technical codes tied to the example work that would be done. So we may tie this to a technical process also. We're for sure going to want to tie this project to the organization, because we get resources from various organizational groups. So I could have a code for engineering, I could have a code for IT, I could have a code for HR, I have a code for finance, wherever we may be getting resources to work on the project. So I can put an organizational code on. Or if I have contractors coming in to work on parts of the project, I may want to set up a contractor code to be able to tie it to specific contractors to keep track of their work. So there's any number of ways I may be able to code. I would only be limited by the software system and its ability to give me extra numbers. We've covered a fair amount in the last 20-25 minutes, maybe closer to 30. by the time you go through this and look at it and go through it again and make sure you've got the pieces right. But what you have to remember is a good WBS is very dependent on good requirements and scope definition. And without those, the WBS is not going to mean much. Remember that the WBS itself tracks product development. So as we pull a piece of work apart into a subtree, we're following product development down to the working level pieces. A complete WBS includes the product subtrees all broken down to the work package level and a WBS dictionary statement with adequate information for all levels and work packages as we go. Thank you very much for taking this course. It's going to get you a half a PDU, and you should receive a certificate for this if you do the download. Thank you very much.